What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Jason, why are you so high on Austin Reaves after one great playoff run? Don't get me wrong, he projects to be a great number 3 or even number 2 in the future, but if the Lakers never made the Western Conference Finals, we would have never found out early enough how great he can be offensively. And just like Jordan Poole, he had one great playoff run, then you predicted he would struggle the following season like every young player would, but you seem to still be very high on Austin right now after only one great playoff run in his resume. Same case with Michael Porter Jr. in Denver. Really good question. I think it's a little bit different on a couple of different levels. One, Austin is a year older than Jordan, and we are now a year further into the future. Like, if the Lakers play in the NBA Finals this year, Austin will be 26 years old, which is we're no longer in young guard territory there. Like, when Jordan Poole was struggling last year, he was 23 years old. It's a little bit more of that in a different kind of time frame, right? Michael Porter Jr., for instance, like, he was the one player below the age of 25, or I think it was either 25 or younger, below the age of 25, I can't remember, in the finals last year. So, like, again, he's a little bit older. That said, that's a totally fair point. And I'll be really curious to see if that theory stays true, because if Austin does really struggle in this year's playoffs, that would be an indicator of that. But hopefully what will push Austin over the edge there is him being a little bit older than Jordan Poole was in last year's playoff run, about 2 years older than Jordan Poole was in last year's playoff run. That said, his slump this year has been weird. And he's had really good moments this year. He's been excellent in crunch time in particular. And there was like a 3-game stretch earlier where he was scoring with good volume and efficiency. But he's had a lot of bad games this year. And he was bad again against the Kings last night. And, again, I'm going to say the same thing that I say, about teams, right? I said the same thing about the Sixers earlier. Like, sometimes good basketball players play bad basketball. Sometimes good basketball teams play bad basketball, right? And that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, Austin Reaves had 8 20-point games in the playoffs last year. So we shouldn't overreact to 8 bad regular season games. And while I think that's a really good point as it pertains to the playoffs, and I'll be really curious to see if Austin succeeds in this year's playoff run, within the scope of this regular season, I expect him to get it together and start playing better. I saw people saying things like, oh, he's higher on the scouting report. No, he's not. He's in the exact same spot on the scouting report he was last year when he was succeeding, right? Like he's playing, he was seeing similar defensive coverages that he did last year. There's been a reorientation of the offense. He's not getting his touches in the same way that he used to. D'Angelo Russell's off to a pretty good start this season offensively, at least with exception of his 3-point shooting, which he broke out of that slump earlier this week. But so his touches are a little different, and I think that's a part of it. I think he's a little bit worn down in general as well. But I'm not off of the Austin Reaves train, because he was awesome after the Russ trade last year. He was awesome in the playoffs. He was awesome in FIBA. He was awesome in training camp, and then he just started to struggle when we got into the regular season. So again, it's too small of a sample size to overreact to. In the big picture, what draws me to Austin Reaves is I think he plays really well with other stars. And I think that kind of uniquely is a thing that separates him from Jordan Poole as well. Like, Jordan Poole is very much like he needs to cook. He needs to kind of run the show. Whereas Austin, it's like if you give him a ton of space and touches, he can do that. But at the same time, he's an excellent player within a 5-man system where he's playing off the ball. He's a great spot-up shooter. Hasn't shot the ball well this year, but he shot the ball amazingly well all year last year and in the playoffs. It's like 44% from 3 in the playoffs. He's just not shooting the ball well this year. But he can shoot the ball well. He can attack closeouts well. He's a good passer. He's a connective piece in that sense. But another big piece with Austin that's kind of holding him back right now is he's not defending or rebounding well. And that's a problem, because last year he was I wouldn't say he was a good defender, but he was a plus defender. He wasn't the guy. He was a slightly above average defender that was not hurting you on that end of the floor, and made some big plays defensively for the Lakers last year. So that piece is the more concerning piece to me. The offensive piece, Austin's going to be fine. He's going to figure it out. The new system is going to disrupt a lot of people, but the defensive end and him just kind of being a little bit more, offering less resistance there. It has been, and then I don't think he's been very good in box out situations either. That's the more concerning thing. But again, that to me is just, I don't know if it's conditioning or if it's an effort thing, but I'm not worried about him eventually figuring that stuff out. But really good point about the Jordan Poole comp. And again, there's a little bit of a difference there, but I am curious to see what ends up being the result when we get into this year's playoffs. But in the big picture, like as far as the Lakers go, I think the same thing that I've always said, in the sense that like it's the same guys, right? It's D'Lo, it's Austin, it's Rui, it's LeBron, it's AD. Like they're good. I saw somebody say in the comments a few weeks back, they're like, oh, you overrate the post deadline run last year because they were playing a weak schedule and they were playing desperate to win every single game. Some of those teams were trying to lose. That's true. But they also beat the 2 seed and beat the defending champions in a playoff series. So like there's no such thing as a bad team that beats the 2 seed without home court advantage and then beats the defending champs without home court advantage. So like I'm just not going to entertain the Lakers are a bad thing, because that just literally doesn't make any sense. It flies in the face of everything we know about the game of basketball. You don't beat good teams 4 times out of 7 unless you are a better team. Like that's just how it works. So like, am I concerned about the Lakers in the big picture? No. I said before the year they needed to make a trade. They haven't made that trade yet. They're not going to be able to until at least January 15th, right? I think it's January 15th. And at that point, we can more appropriately evaluate what the Lakers' ceiling is. But for right now, they're playing bad basketball. And Anthony Davis is playing bad basketball. And Austin Reaves is playing bad basketball. And until those guys get it together and Jared Vanderbilt comes back, I don't think this team's going to be as good as they're capable of being in the regular season, right? Now, here's the upside. Last little kind of silver lining. What did I say before the season? I said I still think the Lakers will win a lot of regular season games. And that's the exciting part, because I think they're 500 right now, right? Like they're 6-6. So they're sitting at 6-6 despite playing one good basketball game. They played one good basketball game against a terrible Memphis Grizzlies team. Outside of that, even their wins have been ugly. It's been like they play like shit for 3 quarters and then they lock in for 12 minutes and they get a win. So like they're playing like shit and they're 6-6. So like that to me is a strong indicator of this team being a healthy above 500 team in the big picture, because they will have stretches where they play better basketball. They'll get healthy. They'll play really good basketball. They'll get into stretches of their schedule to have some easier opponents. Like that to me is a strong indicator of them being a good regular season team. But my opinion about the Lakers remains the same as it pertains to their playoff ceiling. Depends what they get back for D'Angelo Russell. And if they go back with D'Angelo Russell, they're going to lose to Denver or potentially somebody earlier because they're not athletic enough, particularly at the point of attack, to be able to beat the really, really, really good teams in the NBA. All right, next question. Honestly, as a Warriors fan, I don't care about the Curry injury or Green ejection or Clay's slow start. That is business as usual for me. What's new for me, however, is Podziemski's performance and how he completely changes the energy on the floor. He reminds me a lot of early rookies, Steph and Draymond, years before KD era, where they were intimidating and how their energy was contagious. And I really wish to see more of that beautiful basketball, even if they lose all of the remaining 82 games. So it's technically not even a mailbag question, but I thought this was a good opportunity for us to talk about Podziemski, because he had one of the silver linings of that shit show against Minnesota was he looked great. And, there was a couple things that really stood out to me in that game. One, very good rebounder. And this was something we saw from him coming out of college. I think he averaged 8 rebounds a game his last year in college. But specifically, he's actually a pretty big and strong player. And he plays hard. And when you combine those two things, that helps a lot. Like, I mean, you don't have to be a top tier athlete to have success in that environment. Like, we've literally seen, we've seen Josh Hart, for instance, as like a similar type of physique that has had a lot of success doing the dirty work, right? We knew coming into the season that he would have a lot of success in the Warriors system. And we saw that, right? Like, we saw him hit pull-up threes and ball screens when a defender dies on a pick. We saw him get downhill off of a dribble handoff and knock down a floater. We saw him attacking closeouts and those sorts of things. But what was really exciting was the rescue possessions. He had a couple of really nice, tough shots that he hit off the dribble against a set defense and a set defender. And I think that's a strong indicator of one of the things that Steve Kerr said in his post-game presser is he called him like a connector. And to me, being a connector is being good at multiple things. Because like if you're only good at one thing and that thing fails you, then you struggle to impact winning in other ways. But that's what's nice with Podziemski. Is he going to average 20 points a game? Of course not. But Kerr said he is going to be in the rotation a lot. And so if he competes as hard as he can defensively and he competes on the glass the way that he did and he attacks closeouts and does the stuff in the system, then even when he's missing his tougher shots, he'll still be a connective piece that helps the team win, right? And like I am really interested to see where the minutes come from. Because if Podziemski gets more minutes, like who's not going to get minutes? Is that going to be less Moses Moody, who's already kind of struggling to crack into the rotation? Like Corey Joseph got minutes the other day. That was weird, right? So like I'm not really sure how the rotation is going to work out at this point with Podziemski kind of getting into the rotation the way Steve Kerr said. But no matter what, that's exciting. I think in general, what you've gotten from Trace Jackson Davis and Brandin Podziemski this year, combined with Jonathan Kuminga and everything he can do as a matchup attacker in the post and just as an athlete and his ability to get to the foul line, you're seeing a lot of exciting stuff from the young guys. And so even if this does end up ending and turning into a rebuild at some point in the future, there's a lot of exciting stuff in the current set of young players that the franchise has.